Welcome, everyone. This is the Coaching to Flourish podcast. I am your host, John Andrew Williams. Today, I am talking with one of our trainers, a master certified coach, Hannah Finrow. Hannah, welcome to the podcast.
Glad to be here.
Today, we get to dive into your story. We get to share you and your story with the community. Where's a good place to start, Hannah? What do you hope to get out of this podcast the next 30 minutes? Let's start there.
Gotta start it with the coaching question. Yeah, I think I just want to come away with just sharing and just encouraging everyone listening or even listening back to this, just to really embrace your story, because I think that's been a lot of the recent learning for me is just kind of embracing the journey I've been on since almost over 7 years now, since I first kind of stepped into the world of coaching. So it'll be good to reflect and share.
Right. We've been working together for a while. And I remember when we first started, and I first was listening to you coach, I remember thinking you were one of the most technically sound coaches I ever heard coach at that time. And it just is so textbook. And I was always impressed with how textbook your coaching was. And yeah, I mean, now you're an MCC. I mean, you've been one for a couple of years now. So it's like, it's awesome to see like your progress through this. What were some of the biggest milestones in your coaching career, like to get to that MCC? Like, what would you say are the top 2-3 milestones?
Ooh, well, everyone remembers like the call with you. Like it's like the call. Everyone talks about it, like the call with John.
Which one? The first one?
Like when you're filling out the program and you talk to you, and oh, this is it. This is the next level. So I remember that. I remember being in a parking lot and talking to you and be like, I could just talk to you all day about coaching and just how you're changing the world. So I remember that, and I was just being so excited because at that point, when I first came into coach training EDU, I had already done coach training, and it was good, but I was kind of disappointed at the experience because it was just less engaging and personal, and definitely wasn't the same format that we do. And so when I came in to coach training EDU, I was like, this is it. This is awesome. Like, I feel like I get to grow so much more personally as I learn, how to become a coach. So that was that was a big turning point, because up to that point, I don't think it didn't really click as much of like coaching, because at first I had been doing a lot of coaching and mentoring. And so coming into coach training EDU, I was, this is what pure coaching is like. This is amazing.
Yeah, I think that's a pretty consistent feedback we hear from people. Let's say that they're in an organization or a company, or they're working for a university, and they have some coach training, but then they get ICF accredited training, and it's different. It's way more based on. What would you say the difference is? If mentoring versus coaching, like that's a pretty distinct. In my mind, they're very distinct.
Yeah. So in my initial work, we would be clear on when we were coaching from when we were mentoring. Like when you're the expert on you, or when here's some of my wisdom and some things that I tried and worked through myself. So they are very distinct. But I feel like, in our program now, we get, hey, you're the expert and you get to be in the client hot seat. Right. And you work with someone who's gone through it. And so in a sense, like, I think that all of our trainers get to step in and mentor a little bit too, which I think is so valuable, because you get to talk to someone who's actually gone through it and been in your shoes. Yeah, it's awesome. I love that. I remember thinking like, wow, we get to really play with this. I always remembered like we first talked about the sandbox. I was like, this sounds so free. It's less like, do this, 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 and this. It's like, let's play. And that was really big for me, because I think part of that textbook side you were talking about was like, here are the rules. Here's what you need to do and not do. And it was like, wait, you can play and you can experiment and figure out what works and what doesn't.
Right. So let's dive in. So Hannah, where'd you grow up? What were the biggest influences and how does it influence you today?
Ooh, so I grew up in Marysville, Washington. So that is probably about an hour north of Seattle now, just with traffic. But I grew up, not many people know that I'm one of 9 kids. I'm right there, smack in the middle, always trying to make everyone else happy and keep the peace with the siblings. I now live in Nashville, Tennessee. So we moved here 2 years ago, and I've actually given a lot of thought of like, where did it all begin and kind of who I grew up to be. And I definitely I found that some of my peacemaking when I make people happy has really stepped into my career, and I've had to like, okay, that's not my job as a coach, is to make people happy. I want them to be happy, but it's not my job. Another thing is, I've really witnessed kind of firsthand, growing up in a homeschooling family. Like, I mean, not many people know that, like, I was really, really shy, which people are like, what? You talk to people all day, every day, and you're really shy. I actually started co-op in 6th grade, and it took me like 2 months to say anything. And so when the teacher was like, you talk? And I think it's so funny. It was like, people didn't know I talked, that I was so shy, and now I talk for a living, which is kind of funny. But I grew up in a homeschooling family. I had a really close family member that spent time in prison, and that was really, really difficult kind of growing up and not having, like, being heard. And that's what part of I've stepped into my parenting, because I have 2 little kids. And so that's kind of been something that I've processed and been like, I need to be really intentional with how I show up with my family and in my work with people, because you just never know what people are going through. So that's another thing that really shaped me and my story is that. So.
Wow. I didn't know you were homeschooled all the way through high school too.
Yeah, so we did a little bit of co-op. All my siblings joke that we like schooled ourselves. My mom was like, "Here's a book," and so we all grew up loving to read. Honestly, I didn't do math until like I was in high school. Like, that's my mom. I mean, it was, and I like the freedom of like go with what you're interested in. But meeting math for the first time was certainly interesting. There was a lot of tears involved. But yeah, and I was homeschooled, and then I did community college. I was in junior year of high school, so still homeschooled, but then went to college early.
Which is really common for homeschoolers to go and get some, higher level formal education even before they would, quote unquote, graduate from high school. That's super cool. And especially now, Amoy's is homeschooled as well. And we homeschool our little ones.
Mm-hmm.
And now with the pandemic and everything and schools closing, I think 85 people have contacted us asking for advice on homeschooling. So it's like, everybody's like the mad rush of, oh, can you please talk to us for an hour about homeschooling?
Yeah, I mean, all the homeschool groups too, and I see like, I'm new to this, what's the best way to get started?
Yes.
Yeah.
Wow. I mean, I think what people are really after is like, they want to be seen. And there's a lot of it happens in coaching as well. Like, people want to be seen and assured that, yeah, you can do it. You can homeschool if you really want to. I think, yeah, the coolest thing I think about homeschooling or unschooling, or just not traditional school, is that it sets up a different kind of motivation structure. And I'm so curious, like, in like where you are now, like what do you like, how would you describe your motivation structure different from, you weren't really in a traditional setting, but how does that change from, like, you would imagine I'm asking, like, how does the homeschool motivation structure change, or how do you see it as different from a traditional structure,
Yeah.
like from your perspective?
Yeah. So I think, especially in the traditional structure, you have like, these are all the things I have to do versus, in a homeschool, at least in kind of what we set up is like, what are you passionate about? What are you interested in? Just like dive into it and you can, let's, let's do, I think I remember I got really into finger pastels for a while. It's like, that's just like what I did for a while. And it was just like, you can just really deep dive into what you really care about and what you're really interested in. Same thing with like, today it's like I still have that love of learning. I am actually the only person in all my siblings, like I think 3 generations, to get a bachelor's degree.
Wow.
And I really attribute to like, just like I was encouraged just to find joy in what I was learning and just to enjoy it, not because I had to, because I got to. And I think it's it's definitely a privilege to be able to have gone to community college and get experience and knowledge at that young age. So I think just like getting to versus having to, and learning for the sake of just, there's joy in it, versus like, oh, I have to study this for a test. Because honestly, like I can't even remember the first test I took because it felt like this, like doing it was, and showing it, there was less pressure. And it's funny because I'm actually a really good test taker, but I think it's because I didn't have like that study this to take a test growing up. It was more of, let's just enjoy this. Let's learn everything we can about this.
There's something magical about that perspective of the intrinsic joy of learning. It reminds me so much working with, academic, students in the academic life coaching program. I feel like that's the work of an academic life coach, is working with the student in a traditional system, is to reconnect them with what you just talked about, the joy, the intrinsic joy of learning, that the grind of grades and test taking can mash out of people. Where do you see coaching concepts and how have they influenced your parenting? I know coaching has had a huge influence on me. Right. What's your take on it?
Yeah. Well, I think the first thing is it's so easy to react as a parent, but like stepping back and listening and listening at a deeper level. Like I've really have tried to have this perspective of like, I'm teaching my kids how to be human. They don't automatically know how to express themselves and even to communicate what they want. And so that's been a really helpful perspective, is like, no, they're not like just out to get me. They're actually trying to like figure out how to be human. And, as a coach, we always joked because I was coaching full time and teaching with both my boys. I was pregnant and kept joking that they're going to come out like talking like crazy, which is funny because my oldest is so extroverted. But in terms of, my parenting, I think it's just given me patience and just that perspective of like, they don't come out of, and step into the world like ready, understanding ourselves and understanding how to communicate. And so I think it's just giving that perspective of patience, of giving that level 2 listening, because I'll admit sometimes you have to remind yourself to get into like, give that same gift to your kids, because it's so easy to like snap into action. At least I've seen that in myself. It's funny because I definitely ask my kids questions. It's so fun to be curious with them and playful, and I'm excited to see how they continue to grow up, because that kind of coaching combined with like homeschooling, it's going to be interesting to see how it shapes them.
So are you in on it? Are you doing the homeschool thing?
Yeah, I plan to, like I said, my first 3, and he'll see someone 10 houses down and be like, hi. So extroverted. And so I'm really thankful in kind of the Middle Tennessee area where we live. There's a lot of homeschooling, like they call them tutorials or co-ops. And so I plan to just have them involved in things, but I think ultimately I I want to be the one like deciding what they learn and what they don't learn. But I definitely, especially with my oldest, he's like, especially when the pandemic hit, we have him in a little couple hour a week program there's a church right at the end of our neighborhood, so we could walk in a little Mother's Day Out program, because he's just so social and he loves kids, and it's just a great time to just learn a little bit and play, and so that's the big thing is you have to learn how to work with other kids and interact with other kids. Yeah, when the pandemic hit, he was like, it's Tuesday. I see my friends on Tuesday. And I'm like, he did that for like 2 months. And I was like, oh, I know. Mommy's your friend.
Oh, no, that's heartbreaking.
Mommy. Yeah. So, yeah, definitely more of a kind of parent-led education, but I know he needs people. Like he is so like charged and energized by people, but less resources around.
I think that's what I think in an odd way, like what technology is enabling us to do is to have the in-person meetings not necessarily be about I'm just disseminating information, because you can do that on a computer and with all this information at our fingertips. It's unbelievable. But the in-person becomes more about connection and being with people. Like it's just, I feel like there's such a power in that. And we're moving that direction. Where do you see, as an MCC coach, someone who's been in coaching for a decade, where do you see the profession going, or what trends have you noticed in the profession over the last decade?
Yeah, well, honestly, a lot of things shifted for me when, studying for MCC and just realizing wow, it is like just a little shift and you can focus more on the person, and then it can change everything. And so I've just seen, even in the last couple of years, just like giving tips and advice to coaches of like, try this, and like, wait, that's already MCC. And it's so exciting to see just how it's really doable to coach the person. And, I'm excited about the new PCC, the new markers that we're looking at with the competencies. They're condensed. I really love that we have the qualities with Coach Training EDU, because then it's focusing on who we're being as the coach, and then we can, I think when you're looking at who we're being, not just what we're doing, then we can look at, well, not just what the client's doing or what they should do or what they might be able to try, is who are they being and who do they want to be. And so I just love as a whole, it seems like there's just so much more of a personal approach and focus in the coaching field, and just it's so doable. And yeah, it's really exciting to see more and more coaches. Since I got MCC, I've had a lot of coaches reach out to me through the ICF to like get MCC coaching, and it's really cool to see like more coaches, I think, that continue to engage in coaching. They're becoming even better coaches, and we have our coaching pods, power hours with EDU, and I think it's the approach that's really needed. It's so powerful to like receive that experience and give it, and it's consistent with the ICF. They're really focused on and make sure you are coached, as well as working on coaching yourself. Yeah, I like where it's going.
Yeah, I think the ICF, they recently updated their competencies. They simplified it. I was encouraged with the direction they were moving into, with less emphasis on what we call it, the structure of action steps, with more emphasis on the client's learning, like an exploration of themselves and what they are. Like it moved like heavily in that direction, which I was really encouraged by. How do you see, when let's say you're wrapping up a session, how do you see the interaction between like the client's learning and the action steps that come out of a coaching session?
Yeah, well, I'm always saying reflect on the learning before you even talk about action, because the learning will tell you what the action is, or if they still have more to learn. And so I guess it feels less like trying to land a plane when you're focusing on the learning, because like the learning is a huge win, and you're building awareness around the value that was created because there was so much learning. And what was the aha moment, or what shifted for you? And then seeing how that, because of that, I need to do this. It's so different than what's my problem, what do we need to do about it? And then being able to like step into inviting more learning through the action, it just feels, so much more complete and meaningful than doing something just to alleviate the stress of a problem.
Yeah, the framework really does become, how can we use this problem to increase learning?
Mm-hmm.
And that question, I mean, automatically puts people into a growth mindset, because it's not about the end result, but it's about the journey and process. What would be your advice to someone who's just starting out on the coach training journey?
Well, number one is make sure that you are, if you're in training, bringing your genuine agendas to be coached on in breakout rooms, because the more you experience that, like what it's like to be coached, I think you learn how to coach just from that kind of a whole like approach with like what the partnership looks like. So that's the first thing I would say. The other thing is just, it's not just about how to coach. It's about being a coach. And so kind of like along the lines of why I said like pause and be, is like take time to work on you as you work on trying to become a coach, because then you realize all the different things, like, oh, this is my perspective, this is my agenda, this is what I want for them, and it's about the client and them coming to their own conclusions and their path of learning. But we need to work on us as we work on becoming a coach.
Totally. You mentioned in this title the power of pause.
Yeah. It's kind of been something I've been thinking about, kind of been a theme in my life for a while. And it's so funny how it's like it was in my life, and then actually I remember it was in 2.0 with you, and you called me out, and I tell this story to classes all the time. I was like, and John said, "Hannah, don't be cute." And I was like, whoa, I'm totally trying to be cute and clever and bring it all together. And it was about my brilliance and trying to make things happen. We don't make aha moments happen. Aha moments happen. And so for my coaching, actually I had a sticky note after that moment. I still have the sticky note somewhere that said pause for 2 years, because I realized if I don't pause, then I'm trying to step in and they're not getting the full benefit of coaching, because I want to jump in with my cleverness and all the things that I think we should do.
I'm so curious about the pausing. I just listened to a couple of sessions that I led in a course to create new materials for the training programs that we're rolling out. And one of them, I did not pause. I didn't pause. And then the other one, I paused maybe 2 minutes in, and it was like that textbook pause where you pause and the client keeps going. And there's something that it was almost like there was a different part of his mind was accessed given the slowness that we allowed to have happen. When, as a coach, like an MCC coach, like how much pause do you bring in, or what tells you to pause as a trainer or coach?
Yeah, I think there's a lot of different things, but I think that beyond just like pausing is like having that perspective of spaciousness, not that I have to hurry up and speak or hurry up and get to your aha moment, your conclusion, but there's just like this ease and spaciousness in that. And then especially like when I see like quickly responding to questions, that's usually what we think in our first response. And like, we're right, if we sit in it, that's when, I think, I feel, I experience, maybe it invites the client's intuition. It invites them to continue processing it. So especially there, when there's emotion, or you can just see when someone's still working through something. So just giving a lot of space and pause. I remember when I first started working on pause as a coach, and it was mostly when my coaching was on phone, I'd have clients be like, "Are you there? Did I lose you?" And so, for kind of what I've designed with clients is, hey, I'm going to pause, and I want you to pause too, because pausing is not just something we do, it's a coaching tool. It really is. It'll help you look deeper at yourself. I'm gonna hold space for you and process what you're saying and sit with it and let my intuition kind of lead me without hurry up and just ask a question. So I design it ahead of time so that it's an expectation that we pause. We're going to utilize that, because I've seen that pause, you can sit with things, but I think it opens the door to other coaching tools like empathy and direct communication and intuition.
Right. I think it's so smart to design that ahead of time. I've heard feedback from clients where they go through and they look at it and think, in coaching sessions where they felt uncomfortable because there was a lot of pause. They didn't know what that was. New clients who are new to coaching. It is different. People aren't used to it. It's almost like people are used to talking in ways that they have to fight for the attention. They have to fight to gain attention. And I think one of the things I think about being a client, people love the most. Like one of the things they love the most is, I don't have to compete anymore for the attention. Mm-hmm. And when people don't have to compete for attention, they can use all that mental, emotional energy to explore different areas. It's not about being in a performance zone all the time. They can really slip into learning zones. Yeah, it's something I'm really fascinated with. I've been trying to find a study that shows the difference of what happens in the brain if people are asked questions and given lots of pause, or if people are asked rapid fire questions. What changes. So
that's interesting.
Right, we'll find out. Where do you see the future of coaching? If you were to look at it 10 years in the future, like what do you see or what do you hope will shift?
Yeah. Well, I've been really encouraged by just even the last 5 years how more and more organizations are getting coaching for their employees. I feel like everyone needs coaching, and so I'd love that every business offers coaching to their client or to their employees. It's been really cool to see how in education, so many educators are getting trained in coaching concepts and how that's informing, whether they're just using it in their other roles, how it's impacting how they show up. So yeah, I'm really encouraged by that. And I'd love to see more and more organizations, small or big, just really embracing coaching as part of, even if you don't want to have a coaching practice, like how can you use this skill set, this way of being in your role?
Yeah. That's a huge trend I've seen. And it seems like that trend's accelerating fast over the past 3 years. I think it's just going to go even faster now with everything that's happened and the change that organizations are forced to deal with.
Yeah. And they're seeing the value of coaching. Like they understand, and there's all this evidence that coaching works and that it's so valuable. So yeah, I'm excited. I can't wait to see what happens. I think the best field to be in, at least I always tell people, like when I met coaching, it was like love at first conversation. Like, it's just like, there's always more to learn. And even at MCC, it's not like, oh, I have it all figured out, I'm perfect. It's like, wait, I still have more to learn. And different conversations, different clients, they all present different ways for us to work on ourselves too, and how we show up as coaches. So I'm really glad to be in a world, like a field that's always growing and moving and expanding.
Yeah, it is exciting. I think sometimes as coaches, we take for granted the excitement of being on a field that is growing and is on the cutting edge, and is the trend is more and more incorporating coaching concepts more and more into different areas of society. It's almost like watching it's so fulfilling to be on like the ride this wave, you know,
Yeah.
and just watch it, the implications of it. Hannah, it's a pleasure to finally get you on this. How can coach training EDU? How can this community support you? Yeah.
Well, I feel really supported. I love just getting to know all the coaches I get to work with all the time. And I really value connection and hearing other people's stories and what they're working through. It's so inspiring. So I always tell coaches like, hey, you know, you can reach out if you have something like that you need feedback on or help with, but I want to hear all the wins because it's so exciting. And I think sometimes we don't look for those. Yeah, support my love of learning by sharing your learning and your stories and yeah, and the struggles too, because it is hard work. It is, because it's being work, not just I need to learn how to do this. Yeah, so stay connected, and yeah, I love getting to know coaches and staying connected and having relationships with everyone in this. Well, it's a field, but it's a family. It is, and especially with our move, and it's just been so cool to yeah, just have friends in this community where it's like, oh, I have all these people, like more than my hands can count, of people that will listen to me and listen with empathy and curiosity. So it's really a gift.
There's something magical and deeply fulfilling about being in a community of people, working closely with a community of people who are all coach trained and who have this ability to slip into empathetic listening at will, and to really feel like we're making a difference. Like this work truly matters. And I just want to thank you, Hannah, for being like a part of this journey for years, a part of this journey. It's been great working with you. And I know that the future, like what we're up to as an organization, as a humanity, I know at times it seems bleak, but there's so, like when you look at the advancements that the field is making, it does fill me with hope. I do think that this is going to change the way that we learn, work, and play, and recreate, all of it. This work really matters. And thank you for being a part of it.
Yeah, it's a pleasure.
And thank you to larger community, those of you who are here live listening and those who are listening in the recording. Thank you so much for being part of this community. This has been another cast of the Coaching to Flourish.